and get started. So we've got Candice, me, Shannon with Best Choice, and also our designated broker, Rachelle, here on the call. And it's a little bit different tonight. We're doing a Q&A. So it's kind of like, let's put it back on you guys. What do you guys need help with? What are you coming across? Are there weird situations we can answer? And we certainly have questions to fill the time. If you guys are like, oh, I don't want to be on the hot seat, that's okay. We have questions that we can cover that we've been getting in emails over the last week or two, especially with some of the changes that have been going on and are coming up in January. So I think just to kind of warm us up, I suppose, Candice, what are some of the common questions I suppose you've been getting in the last week or so from people?
So I'm looking down here at my phone and just kind of thinking. So I think what I've noticed, and I think this is positive, there's a lot of agents that I've talked to recently that haven't wrote an offer in a while. And so just looking at the Form 21 and going through and asking about the information verification, what is that period on the purchase and sale on the Form 21? I don't remember seeing that, and a few additional items that are now on our forms, Form 21, our purchase and sale agreements. So kind of brush up a little bit, write some practice offers, send them over if you'd like. I'm here to help in any way I can.
Yeah, I know. It's like some of the weird stuff is starting to crop up. I know I had a question earlier today that was asking, my buyer is wanting to shop lending. So I'm like, okay, that's great. That's awesome. Here, one second, Rachelle. She's having issues with her audio. She's gonna just sit right next to me, I guess, today. So some of the question that I had was like, well, what do you do? Do we need to supply notice? On the Form 22A, we call it the shopping clause. It's not actually called that in the form, but that's kind of what we call it, is the shopping clause. Right underneath the percentage on the 22A, it tells you, this much money down for conventional, and it gives you a certain amount of days. That days is your shopping clause, where you can indicate if your buyer is shopping lenders within that time frame, there's not really notice that needs to be supplied to that seller. Other than FYI, we're using this lender as we proceed to closing and for appraisal purposes and whatnot too. So I suppose that's a quick answer to that question. What about the rest of you guys? It looks like Alex has unmuted his line. What can we answer tonight for you? Oh, Mark's got a question. You go for it, Mark.
Okay, just two questions. So I just had a closing last week and the sellers didn't get out on time. It wasn't a big deal because they left my clients like thousands of dollars worth of pressure washers and lawnmower. It's a 20-acre farm. So my clients were happy and they weren't moving in for a couple days anyway. So everybody was friendly. It all worked out. But I'm just curious, we did the walkthrough. I guess the problem was the moving van was supposed to come on a Saturday and it actually didn't come until like 2 days later because who knows why. So what do you do in that? Like, had my clients not been reasonable and do you ask for like rent equal to the mortgage payment per day that they're in there, or
yes,
how do you
so did you have a rent back that you were using, Mark?
No, they were supposed to be out on Monday at 9 p.m. And actually my client went over there Tuesday afternoon, and I guess the guy has he had a stroke or something, so he's a little mental, but he's like, oh, where are you staying tonight? She's like, my house here. And then he's like, oh, okay. But it was weird. It all worked out, but I'm just wondering, had it not worked out, what's the best way to delicately and amicably resolve that kind of issues if someone isn't out when they're supposed to be?
Yeah, this is a question that happens a lot. Candice and I have encountered this many times, Mark. So you have to understand that there is a rent back option, right? 65A and 65B in Washington. Idaho is different as far as how they handle this, but as far as Washington goes, sometimes it's better to do an extension, but then sometimes it's not, depending on the lending and all of that. So you've got to know your forms well and be able to execute them, but then people are without computers. And so I'm going to flip this one to Candice. Candice,
Well,
you probably.
so just to clarify though, so this happened at like the 11th hour and
Everybody's already
59 minutes, right?
signed, funding.
Like
has already
everybody
been
was
released.
signed, the money had transferred, everything was good, and the deal was completely closed.
Yeah.
So there, it wasn't like, oh, well, let's just do a rent back. No, the deal's
Couldn't do it.
complete.
It's already done. Yeah.
They just didn't get out when they were supposed to.
Yeah, those are tough ones because at that point, our agency duties have ceased. And so really it becomes a customer service nightmare sometimes. Hopefully it's not. And the real estate agents work together to try to come up with a suitable situation for the client. So usually there's, like they left a lot of garbage. And so we're having to kind of chip in some cleaning and be reimbursed from our respective clients. That's when it gets to kind of be very, very gray. It's not a black and white kind of situation. Candice, have you experienced that?
It seems like probably, yeah, absolutely, many times. And I think, Rachelle, you're right. It's, ideally working with the other agent to see what we can do that's most ideal for the clients involved. I've had situations where they were kind of like one was pulling out, the other was coming in. We've got moving trucks in the middle of the driveway. One is trying to get theirs out. They had a delay. And these things happen, especially this time of year too. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's winter, travel, movers, you name it. But I think the biggest thing is just really talking to the clients. Things do happen. And our goal is to just be as amicable, on both sides as possible so that, it's not a horrible situation. I have had it where we had to get the seller, and no fault of the sellers either. It's kind of like the moving trucks didn't come. Why? What happened? We can't blame the seller for that. So at that point too, we asked the seller, hey, can they at least pull their stuff in the driveway, their moving truck, and you pay for a night? Seller's like, I don't really have much money, but I'll try to chip in. And so, kind of all came together. I put a little in, the listing agent put a little in, and the seller did too. So they got a hotel for the evening. So it's, hopefully you can find situations, but it happens so often. And I try to just prepare my clients in advance, especially when that it's not vacant prior to closing, that anything can happen. Let's just kind of like really tiptoe around this and hope for the best, and communicate as much as you can. It's difficult though too, because there's circumstances where on the other side, you've got agent that's not communicating and, sellers maybe bitter over something, so it can be a process. But, ideally it's trying to do our best to work together to have a solution for all.
Right. Thank you.
And I think too, Mark, I know it sounds like your situation got figured out quite nicely, so you're very lucky, but for people that are doing 65Bs, I'm always of the opinion, just especially as the buyer's agent, when you're giving the seller extra time after closing, having at least, a lot of people over the last couple of years, they've been doing the habit of putting 0, 0, 0, like it's a $0 rent back. But what happens if that seller ends up staying 5 days, 6 days longer than what they were supposed to? And, it's a landlord tenant law type of situation at that point in time too. So as a buyer's agent, to protect my buyer when they're renting it to the seller, it's best practice to at least have, at the very least, the equivalent of what the PITI is for the property, of what the new buyer's mortgage would be for that per diem amount, for how many days. So basically the way it would look like on the 65B, it's like, $0 for these 2 or 3 days, but after this date, rent shall be equivalent to, I don't know, $110 per diem, basically. And that would at least give the buyer some protection there. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Mark.
That was a good one, Mark.
Yeah.
I did have another one, but I'll let somebody else jump in and come back.
That's good. That's good. Perfect. What else is rattling, you guys? What's going on in your guys' business? How can we help?
Well, I have noticed listings are actually going under contract. It seems like I actually made an offer and it was multiple offers, you guys, and we lost. So, I think that was just interesting. And I was looking at our numbers too, for this last month going into November, and we're actually looking pretty good considering.
Yeah, we've got some good things on the horizon. What are you seeing as far as, are we still talking about this whole buyer agency thing? Is it people still encountering that out in the industry? I know we've covered it quite a bit in a lot of the masterminds and the trainings that we've done recently. What are your peers out there at various companies? Are they worried about the buyer agency agreements and the changes that are on the horizon?
You guys are so quiet.
I know we have to start picking on people.
I
Mark's
know.
Mark's got a question. That's okay.
I've talked to a variety of different people, both mortgage people and other real estate agents, and everybody thinks it's going to be business as usual.
Okay. That's what we're experiencing here already. So I don't expect to have anything crazy happen, and our forms have changed. And so I think that's the biggest change, is that we've got to adapt to the new forms. Other than that, business as usual.
If any listing agent was to only offer like a $1 buyer commission, that would get negotiated out during the transaction. I just don't see any way this would change anything.
Okay, good. Well, go ahead, Mark. Since we've got your voice, let's go ahead with the next question.
Oh, okay. Has anybody done any deals with Hayden Homes who might be able to? So it's fine. I'm just kind of wondering how to delicately tell this agent that she needs to do her job better, or maybe just like ignore it. What's funny is, so every email she sends out always has this little signature line that says, I'm going to be sending you guys a buyer survey and I want 5 stars. So be thinking about that, which to me is a little like presumptuous from the beginning. But anyways, we did a pre-drywall walkthrough last week, and my clients came all the way from Everett to Post Falls to do this. And it was sort of implied that, hey, this is going to be the last time you can make small changes like moving an outlet or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So we get there, we do the walkthrough. It's fine. My clients are totally chill, so it's not a big deal. But they said, oh, maybe could you put another outlet on this other wall in case we want to plug our TV in on that wall? So I told them, yeah, I'm sure that's probably okay. Let me call the agent. And she's like, no, we can't do that. We've already had electricians. She was like very rude about it too. Like, why are you asking me this? And she never answers her phone. She's like, and it'll always be, I will get to this when I start my day at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And I actually talked to another agent in the area, and he said, oh yeah, that's standard for her. She doesn't like to work. So I'm just wondering if I should just, my client wants to relay that he's dissatisfied with this, but I don't know if
okay.
I feel
that's a great topic. I mean, we're talking about new construction. So new construction, you're going to have all different types of customer service, and builders will hire these types of licensed real estate agents to represent them in a transaction. And they definitely don't work the same hours that you and I work, Mark. So I would say, first off, handling it with, there's all of these kinds of protocols or processes that they put in place that they're required to do because they're hired by the builder. Sometimes they're W-2'd even.
Yeah, I think she is actually.
Is she as a W-2 employee?
We were talking about closing early, and I just made a quip about at least we'll get paid earlier then. And she said, well, you will, I won't.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we deal with that a lot, where you have to diffuse personalities and try not to get in the middle of the way that they handle their things. So I would say that especially anything that your client brings up throughout the new construction process, the new construction typically has their own builder's addenda. It doesn't matter what builder you're working with. Most builders have a separate addenda or their own contract that they follow, and they have their own process. But anytime we're communicating between the builder agent and our client, the buyer, in Mark's case, should be in writing. So any kind of communication you're doing, Mark, it should be just send her an email. If it helps to copy me as a designated broker, I'm happy to be the CC. That sometimes adds a little bit, because they have their protocol, with their builder being CC'd or their management. So if it helps to use me as a designated broker, I've copied my designated broker as, on this request that we are putting in writing. It needs to be somewhere in writing that request is usually done. So even electrical, as simple as electrical, I've had that happen to me exactly, Mark, not from that particular builder, but from another. Same situation happened with electrical, and they were actually past the electrical permitting process, and they couldn't put in a simple little electrical. And I'm in there trying to, while the walls are open, trying to kind of throw the guy $100 to have him put another little, electrical component in for a client. And I got superintendent showed up as well, and they were not too pleased with how I showed up at the new construction site. So you kind of walk a fine line between their protocol, their process, how they have their timing, of when their superintendent comes out and when they actually have to get their approval. But something that might seem simple that should be put in writing, just send it in an email first, so that it gets to that builder. Because anything that's written in writing, it needs to be submitted to that other party. That's a requirement of Washington and Idaho law. So I would say even something as simple as electrical, you probably want to put it in an email if she's not responding to the phone calls.
Well, I mean, she responded and, told me that it was impossible to do. And I was more, I guess, just wondering, is this kind of par for the course for Hayden Homes? Or
might be that, I mean, that's,
yeah.
I have not specifically worked with them myself, but I have heard that. That would be something that you might want to throw up on some other kind of Idaho closed group, and see if they have any recommendations on things that they might do.
Well, the one other agent that I talked to, and he works for Keller Williams, but he's dealt with this same person before and rolled his eyes. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we do a lot of that. Candice, anything else you want to add to that? As far as working with builders or with buyers, I think setting expectations with buyers, a lot of times they don't know what they don't know. It's like their first time buying a new home, and they think everything has to be perfect. I know that. And they expect to kind of almost be, I don't know, catered through the process. They do seem to be very, very difficult at times.
Yeah.
Any tips? You have got something?
Well, I'm hoping Candice I know is having a situation with new construction recently, but I'm hoping you can at least answer two questions. I get these all the time. One about registration policies with new construction, and then the second one about builder warranties. So I'm hoping, I know Candice can speak to both of those. Do you mind piping in, Candice?
Well, I think because all the new construction are different, and I also think Maricon can probably speak to that quite a bit as well. I know she's had quite a few new constructions, but I guess my big learning lesson most recently is they're not all the same. And it's kind of like you said, Hayden Homes, and it's nice to kind of, know a little, some of the ins and outs with some of them. But I think first off, it's very important, if you're dealing with new construction, you get ahead of that before your clients and make sure that you are registered with the whatever registration process they have. They're different from, I've seen them be so different even now. So
registration could mean, just so I'm clear with some of our newer guys, like meet the people, right? Go to the home site, maybe ahead of time.
Yes.
Call, speak with their site person, build that relationship, register, meaning there's some sort of sign in, right? I mean, that's the kind of steps you're going to have to take.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, Candice, keep going.
And some of them, like I said, the process is nice and easy, and others I've just seen it just like pulling teeth to get the information needed to register as well. But first and foremost, do it. I had taught a class a few Saturdays ago, just a home buying class, and one of the gals that was in there, she's like, "Oh, I was out at this site and looking at this new construction, so it's down the street from my house." I said, "You know what? Let me just go on and drive by, make sure I'm registered here, Pacific Lifestyle Homes, and go in." Wonderful process. I actually knew the agent, so everything worked out well. And then too, with the warranties, I had a situation there as well. This builder actually went kind of pre-bankruptcy. And so we had a whole new process. And the biggest thing was with the builder warranty. In this case, it was just the home warranty, because the builder, at the point where we determined the builder was kind of out of the picture,
Mhm.
I had to have them decide, like, you've got a 1-year home warranty with this particular home, not a builder full warranty that they're going to meet you 11 months after and do a full walkthrough. You have a 1-year home warranty with this, and now is your chance to either say, do you want to walk away or not? And so I think too, it's important to understand what that builder warranty looks like. I've seen some great ones where they're like on top of it. They're meeting with you at 6 months post closing, and then they're meeting again with you, 11 months prior to your first year, 12 months, to do walkthroughs. I've seen it now to where you've got a 1-year home warranty, and that's
It covers
it.
your appliances and just, your
Any
mechanical
major, it
parts.
actually, the warranty though, it covered anything, any major systems, all the appliances, pretty much anything that could go wrong. But two, and things did go wrong literally a month after closing, and we had no builder to go back on. No builder. So just kind of be aware of the home warranty, do a dive in with your client, so you can just kind of, not necessarily that you're doing any work for them, but make sure that they're aware, prepared, and knowledgeable about what that warranty entails.
Yeah, I think that that's some good tips, Candice, especially when you're looking at a contract. I mean, there's some areas of the contract that I specifically read, and that would be one of them, is the warranty section of their purchase and sale agreement. And also, the financing to understand how they run finances. Those are two very critical areas that you want to watch for.
Somebody made a note here. Let's see here. Watch for supply chain logic in builder docs. Got stung by a missing refrigerator due to this. That's a good one. Let's see here. And okay, so Jamie has a couple of questions. Is there a specific place I can go look at interest rates on a daily basis? I'm also wondering about her landing page, or his landing
Good
page.
question. And we can cover that. That's a nice way to end tonight, is just to kind of give everybody an idea of landing pages versus websites and kind of what you need to keep in mind. So the daily rates, that's something that if you get on an email thread with Movement Mortgage, they can give you an update daily. There's plenty of lenders that are sending me, in fact, a lot of them are spammy right now. I can't. And so, Jamie, to answer your question, interest rate on a daily basis, yeah, you can certainly watch that, but there's obviously more that goes into the interest rates than just the rate itself. So find a lender that you trust. Hopefully it's Grace or Nancy, and they can kind of give you a link that you can access that will give you some of that information, but realize that that's not the only thing to keep in mind as the rate.
Right. I mean, there's more that goes into an interest rate rather than just the number. I mean, it could be your credit score. It could be the amount of money they're putting down. It could be their program, down payment assistance programs. It could be their buying down points. I mean, all those things can kind of go into what their interest rate is going to be when they buy a house. So I wish it could be just like a dart that we can say, everybody's going to lock in at this percent today, but it's not always that case every day. But Rachelle's right. I get dozens of them every day too. So, and then I think also every week we have, Movement Mortgage jump in on our webinars here today. So we can get some of those kind of quick questions of like, okay, where are we at? Are we in the 6s, 7s, 8s? Where are we at?
We up or down
Hey,
or
Shannon.
Yep.
So it's not as simple as to just tell my buyer clients then that interest rates are in the 6%, because depending on their finances, they may not qualify for a 6% interest rate.
You got it. Yeah, I would say it's very program specific, and it's all about the actual individual circumstance right now for the buyer. I had one right now where I was representing the seller. Actually, the seller was buying down the rate for the buyer to the tune of almost $15,000. Well, that took them from a 8% interest rate, down considerably. Well, at the end of the day, the buyer is they're walking into a short-term less interest rate that they're going to be paying over the next couple of years too, which will be nice. So it just depends on the circumstance. Right now, I think solidly we're in the 7s right now.
Yeah.
So that's what you kind of share for this week, but it can change next week.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as far as landing pages, I'll answer that question. So everybody at Best Choice Realty has an opportunity to have their own landing page. You can purchase your own account from GoDaddy. Many of you have done that. And then you would basically have the ability to promote your own landing page that will then get pushed out to different, maybe you want to post on social media. Maybe you want to tell a client you're talking to or put on a postcard that please go to my website, RachelleWilhite.com. And they can start to search for homes, and those leads do go to you. That's the way we've set that up. So there is no additional technology fee for that. Once you pay your initial startup with Best Choice, we've designed and we've connected everything to work appropriately. If your website does not work, or you need some help with that, this is a great time, November, December, to reach out to support@bestchoicerealty.com, and we can certainly help you. We could add more to your profile. Some of our top producers have added some badges. They get a badge or two that they've added to their signature block, or they want to add some reviews to their website. This would be a great ideal time to do those types of updates to your landing page. So if you do want to do that, the simple thing to do would be to just take some time tonight, support@bestchoicerealty.com, the same website that you send your documents to. And we respond very quickly. And I know we can carve out some time to get those updates made for your website, or give you some more instruction on how to use your website. We definitely can do that as well.
I'm not sure if I have mine. I recently, just last night, I sent Tara over a bio for myself as well as a couple of reviews, and I assumed that was going to be for my landing page.
Yeah, that's correct.
And is that something that I'd be able to access through Best Choice Realty, or like the website for Best Choice Realty?
Once it's done, Jamie, you'll be able to they'll give you instructions on how to access it. And then you'll be able to see what has been created and make some adjustments if you need to.
Okay, so it is separate then from the Real Geeks profile. That's kind of what I was trying to distinguish. I wasn't sure if they were interconnected.
From the CRM. Yeah. So I think there's the landing page. So kind of think of it, I suppose, if you're kind of like, what's the difference between a website and a landing page? Usually what I tell people is I'm like, think of it as like a tree. You're part of the Best Choice tree. A landing page is like a branch off of the tree. Some people will have their own websites that they've blown out and they've created and they've had from scratch, and that would be like a separate tree. So when you have a landing page with Best Choice, you have a branch, right? Think of it as like a branch off the tree. So there's some things that we can customize, some things that we can't. But I can kind of show you guys at least a sample of what that looks like. Here, let me share my screen. So let's just use, Cheryl is a good example. So she has a landing page on her branch, right? So we can customize at least the header image. I know it's taking a second to load. I think our internet's just slow, but the menu bar, I mean, this is part of the main tree, right? We can't make changes to things like this.
And the main tree is choicehomesforsale.com, but you can mask it. So it could be Jamie sellshomes.com or whatever domain name you've purchased yourself.
Right.
That branch can be, the Choice Homes for Sale can be masked with your own domain name. Does that make sense, Jamie?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
Yep. So, and then anybody so if someone starts kind of putting around on here, oh, see, now it's finally loading.
Mhm.
Someone starts putting around on here. You can see Cheryl's got like a badge on here. She's got a very long bio, reviews, anything like that. There's things that elements we can add to it. Unfortunately, it doesn't give the agent the ability to add to it. You have to work with us because it's part of our tree, right? But if you let us know what you're wanting to do, we can incorporate it. And then, let's see, anybody who logs into it like a consumer, they would get tied into you on the back end here too. So let's see. Well, I don't know why it's doing this. If I hit search, I start looking for properties, putting around, it'll prompt me to sign up. That person that signs up, if they were unique and coming to your website, they would get tied to you in the Real Geeks backend system. So that's kind of all how it works together. It's all integrated in that way.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you.
Yep.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, that's 6 o'clock. That's how fast that goes with Q&A. So I
know.
appreciate Mark and Jamie for chiming in. And definitely Atomic 8. Thank you for that.
Yep. And if this is probably one of the first times we've done this in a while, but if you guys want to do this again, let us know. I mean, it's kind of fun to kind of just
I like that.
answer questions in this type of format sometimes too. So I sent out before with the webinar link tonight, the recording from last Monday where we had the attorney on the webinar.
It was 2 hours, you guys.
Yeah.
So it's very meaty.
Yeah.
So if you were needing to get some additional questions answered after, maybe picking up some of the terms and knowing how to do that, that would be something you probably want to do in person. There's a lot of thought that went through all of the changes that were made to the various contracts.
Yep. And everything should be published too. I'm not sure if they mentioned this at the end of the call yesterday or on last Monday, but it will be published on Express Forms, Transaction Desk, all the places to make it easy for you guys to use the new Best Choice forms too. So, so stay tuned, I suppose, for that. And then happy Thanksgiving.